Look at your banking app. The number on that screen decides where you sleep, what you eat, and whether you retire in comfort or fear. Now, picture an ordinary Tuesday, 6,000 years ago, in a village on the banks of the Tigris River. People are eating, roofs are getting rebuilt, and children are being raised, all without a single coin or a single price tag. For centuries, introductory economics textbooks have taught a very specific origin story. It goes like this. Humans used to barter. If I had chickens and you had shoes, we'd swap. But finding someone who wanted exactly what you had was frustrating, so some clever villagers invented money to solve the headache. When anthropologists actually went looking for a society that ran on daily barter between strangers, they couldn't find one. Instead, early human societies ran on the economics of obligation. If a neighbor helped rebuild your roof after a storm, you didn't pay them, you owed them. The community maintained a shared, invisible ledger of who had given what to whom, tracked purely through personal relationships. Homo sapiens have existed for roughly 300,000 years, and money is maybe 5,000 years old. For over 98% of our history, the primary currency of human civilization wasn't a physical token at all. It was interpersonal trust, memory, and reputation. This system of mutual obligation works flawlessly in a small village when everyone knows everyone. But once populations expand into cities, the math of trusting your neighbor breaks down. The first barrier is the memory wall. You can hold the reputations of a few dozen people in your head. You cannot physically track the social debts of 100,000 strangers. If someone takes without giving back in a massive city, there is no shared social pressure to stop them because nobody knows them. Then you hit the specialization wall. As populations expand, people stop doing a little bit of everything and start doing one thing very well. A blacksmith provides immense value to a city, but that artisan now requires a constant, highly coordinated supply of food, medicine, and cloth from dozens of strangers just to survive. A village gift economy cannot coordinate that exact rhythm of supply. Finally, there's the timing wall. A wheat farmer harvests a crop once a year, while a carpenter builds tables year-round. Coordinating those vastly different rhythms of production without a way to store value across time becomes a logistical nightmare. Money emerged as a specific solution to this logistical strain, a physical hard drive designed to record obligations and coordinate trust beyond the biological limits of the human brain. If we ran a thought experiment and wiped the invention of money from history, civilizations would still have to solve those three walls. The first alternative they usually turn to is a strict command and status hierarchy, where a king, a chief, or a council dictates who gets what. We know this works because the Inca Empire built one of the largest territories in the pre-modern world, spanning the western coast of South America, with virtually no market economy. Instead of coins, they ran on a system called mita. Households owed a mandatory amount of physical labor to the state every year. In exchange, the state guaranteed food distribution during famines, maintaining total control over the region's resources. This is a quipu. To solve the memory wall across a vast empire without written words or currency, the Inca used this knot-based recording technology. The varying strings and knots allowed an empire-spanning bureaucracy to track who had provided labor and who needed food. A command system successfully routes resources, but it relies on immense centralized control. Without a neutral, tradable token, a citizen's economic fate is entirely locked to their position in a rigid hierarchy, leaving the society highly vulnerable to corruption and authoritarianism. The second alternative skips both coins and kings. It's often called a resource-based economy. Picture a planet-scale spreadsheet run cooperatively. It tracks what is being produced and what is needed, and directs resources using a massive logistics algorithm rather than market prices. We've seen partial versions of this. During the Second World War, governments in Britain and the United States bypassed the market entirely. This is a war ration book. They allocated fuel, rubber, and food based on calculated wartime need, rather than a citizen's purchasing power, using these grids of stamps to track consumption. It worked under short-term crisis conditions, but applied as a permanent system, it runs straight into the information problem. Committees attempting to centrally plan an economy without price signals, like those in the Soviet Union, frequently produced well-documented mismatches. Warehouses would sit full of unwanted goods in one region, while another faced desperate shortages. A rising price instantly tells thousands of unrelated suppliers that a resource is scarce, without a central authority needing to say a word. No human committee has ever successfully replicated that decentralized automatic signaling across an entire civilization. The third path layers underneath our current world right now. Think about Wikipedia or the massive open-source software projects that run much of the internet's infrastructure. Millions of hours of highly skilled labor are coordinated and deployed without a single paycheck. This model scales the ancient village gossip network to a global level. Instead of money, a programmer's visible, trackable record of contributions functions as capital. That record builds a reputation that gives strangers a reason to trust and collaborate with one another. But a society running purely on reputation networks carries its own dark side. If access to basic resources requires proving your worth through years of social relationship building, it becomes deeply exclusionary. A stranger, an outsider, or simply someone the community has decided not to like could be locked out entirely. All of this leads back to the actual question hiding inside our thought experiment. If money never existed, would we still have rockets, hospitals, and soaring skyscrapers? Would we have a grand civilization at all? The honest answer is yes. Many of humanity's most staggering achievements were not driven by a market for construction services. The Great Pyramids of Egypt were engineered and erected under a massive system of forced labor and state tribute. In medieval Europe, cathedrals like Notre Dame took generations to complete. The people who started the foundation knew they would never live to see the roof, let alone profit from it. The fuel there was religious devotion and guild patronage, entirely disconnected from the logic of a financial return. The drive to discover, build, and engineer functions independently of coins. Human history is defined by large-scale cooperation. Money was simply the specific tool we adopted to coordinate that effort across continents and centuries. Which brings us to the hardest truth of this entire experiment. Wiping money from the timeline wouldn't leave us in a peaceful, egalitarian utopia. Human beings have a deep evolutionary drive to seek status, security, and advantage. When you remove financial wealth from the equation, that drive simply flows through other channels. Societies without money still built brutal hierarchies based on military dominance, control of valuable land, absolute religious authority, or weaponized generosity. There is a strange irony here. For all its flaws, money is a highly impersonal, convertible form of power. You can trade it anonymously or use a fortune built in one industry to buy access in another. In a world without it, your status is dictated by bloodline or inescapable social debt, systems that are far harder for a commoner to break out of. Removing currency shifts the pursuit of power into other domains, bloodlines, favors, or religious standing. The deep structural challenges of civilization stem from human nature itself, remaining present regardless of the specific technology used to manage resources.